Welcome to Stacy on the Right with your host, Stacy Washington.
Love is everlasting, love is only kind, love is always patient.
Tell us about John Podesta and his connection to a Kremlin-backed company.
Well, in 2011, John Podesta joins the board of this very small energy company called Juul Energy, based out of Massachusetts. About 2 months after he joins the board, a Russian entity called Rusnano puts 1 billion rubles, which is about $35 million, into John Podesta's company. Now, what is Rusnano? Rusnano is not a private company, Steve. It is a fund directly funded by the Kremlin. In fact, the Russian science minister called Rusnano Putin's child. So you have the Russian government investing in one of John Podesta's businesses in 2011 while he is an advisor to Hillary Clinton at the State Department.
While he's an advisor to Hillary Clinton. Okay, does anybody in the Trump circle rise to the level where there's this kind of money involved?
No, I haven't seen that yet. Nobody that is, has an advisory role in the White House has had this money exchanged, and certainly the money hasn't exchanged, as far as we know, while they have been advising the president.
Interesting, isn't it? That's not something that we're hearing about until now. So maybe the reason why the drumbeat for the whole Russia investigation and the reason why it's getting so quiet up in here, if you're a parent, you might know this phenomenon. When your kids are playing happily and it's kind of noisy and loud and you can hear stuff, then things are probably going pretty normally, moderately normally. It's when it gets super quiet, when all the children, when they're in their younger years, obviously, and you don't hear any children anywhere, that's when you know someone's either broken something or someone that they're arguing quietly amongst themselves because they don't want you to hear it and come in and intervene, or they're up to no good. They're drawing on walls, pouring various liquids into not hard floors, carpets, things like that. They've possibly gotten into some very creative activity that requires all of their mental faculties, and they're quite quiet. And so this is pretty similar to that. Why aren't we hearing anything about the updates on the Russia investigation? Maybe some will come out tomorrow. Maybe it'll prove me wrong. But I think it's because, what have I been saying? This is now a coined phrase of the Stacy on the Right show. Scratch a scandal, find a Democrat. What are you looking at? Robert Mueller has subpoenaed the Podesta Group. Remember John Podesta of Pizzagate fame. Now, we all know that has been debunked, and, there are quite a few people who still believe in that story, but the WikiLeaks revelations about the hacking of the DNC centered around John Podesta's emails and the things he was saying and doing in those emails. He's not a stranger to scandal at this point, but I just think it's interesting that the Kremlin spent that kind of money for 75,000 shares in Juul, and that's connected with him. Not connected with Donald Trump, not connected with Don Jr., not connected with anyone affiliated with Trump world. But instead, we're back over on the Democrat side. John Podesta, you have the big scandal with Debbie Wasserman Schultz and her IT guy, and that is deepening and widening as the days go on. So it's an interesting phenomena, if you will, that we're experiencing. So I teased this a little bit ago. I talked about what they could do if the feds really wanted to help. And this is actually not mental recession. It's Adam Conman, another good friend, blogger. He does a fantastic job over at Conman's Musings. So first off, he starts this blog post with a scripture. It says, Ecclesiastes 5:8, if you see the oppression of the poor and the violent perversion of justice and righteousness in a province, do not marvel at the matter, for high official watches over high official, and higher officials are over them. So he's talking about the president being in town and talking about in Texas, and talking about the wheels being set in motion for the feds to cut Texas a big check for disaster recovery. But he's not enthusiastic about it. He says the history of federal disaster recovery efforts don't inspire confidence, and instead he would prefer to see, Adam Conman, 3 actions for Congress to take that would help fulfill the president's pledge that the Harvey recovery effort would be better than ever before. So Adam Conman proposes that they repeal the Jones Act of 1920, which is a protectionist law that mandates that all goods shipped between the U.S. ports be carried on U.S.-built ships. This raises shipping costs for everyone to insulate a politically favored industry from competition. In the context of the Harvey recovery, considering that Houston is the second busiest port in the United States, it doesn't take a genius to see how lowering shipping costs will lower the overall cost of the recovery. Some America First types might prattle on about foreign ships or some such nonsense, but the truth is, by raising the shipping costs for U.S. firms outside a reasonable trucking distance, the Jones Act incentivizes seeking foreign suppliers. If politically driven shipping mandates make it cheaper to import from Honduras than to ship from North Carolina, you shouldn't be surprised when there are more imports from Honduras. That's the example he gives. Boy, it's something when logic enters into the room, isn't it? Because now my wheels are all turning about a whole bunch of other different things. So he notes that while not related to disaster recovery, the Jones Act also increases the cost of living in Hawaii and Alaska, so the coalition that could get this through Congress is pretty obvious. All right, next one. Number 2, what can we do if we really want to help? What can the federal government do? Repeal the Davis-Bacon Act of 1931. This sop to organize labor artificially raises the costs of federally funded construction projects by imposing a politically driven wage schedule. In the seemingly inevitable event that the feds cut Texas a big check, repealing Davis-Bacon will at least allow taxpayers to receive a decent return on our investment. So while we're on the subject, the original intent of Davis-Bacon was to make it illegal for African Americans to compete with whites, which makes getting rid of it that much better of an idea. Okay? I'm just going to move on ahead to number 3. Number 3 is repeal the National Flood Insurance Act of 1968. Adam is a radical, isn't he? So the reason he says we should do that is federal flood insurance subsidies go to construction in floodplains. If private insurance won't cover something, there's a reason for that. Once claims for the current crisis are paid, the program should be eliminated. Now, this is something that happens every single time there's a flood. It just recently happened here in Missouri, where down near where we live, like maybe 8 miles away from here, there's a juncture of one highway and another. And that place always floods whenever we have more than a couple of inches of rain. When I say that place, I mean that area of highway becomes undrivable. So cars going east and west and cars going north and south on the smaller thoroughfare, the major highway, it's a interstate highway, Highway 44, and the juncture of that local system that goes north and south, that area is flooded and it's impassable. And when that area is flooded, you know that there are certain areas south of there, actual neighborhoods that are impassable. If you live in those neighborhoods, you know you have to have a certain amount of provisions available to you, because you're not going to be able to get out of your subdivision for a few days. Not by car. Now, if you have a drone that carries a single person, you probably could get out, but you can't get out otherwise unless a helicopter comes in and gets you. Not to get into St. Louis. So why would we be building single family homes, subdivisions, and huge shopping complexes, et cetera, in floodplains? Because the federal government will give you flood insurance when regular insurers will not. Now, right now, I can hear some people who are developers saying, well, Stacey, that's ridiculous. You're saying you don't want development. No, I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that you can go on to different websites, different news sites, go on Facebook to news sites, and whenever there's flooding in these areas, people are invariably asking the same thing. Why would you choose to live in a 100-year floodplain, meaning it floods multiple times every 100 years? I remember when we were looking, every single time we looked at houses, and my husband would pull it up on the internet, and he'd say, oh, this house is in the 100-year floodplain. And we would immediately cross it off the list. I don't care what the house looked like. I don't care what kind of a deal it was. We wouldn't buy a house in the 100-year floodplain. That doesn't mean you won't get flooded out. That doesn't mean your sewer won't back up, or you won't have a heavy rain, or have tree branches invade your sewer line and have some kind of, back up into your basement. It doesn't prevent that. But you have a much smaller chance of having your home destroyed by water, flooding, standing water, if you are not situated in a 100-year floodplain than you do if you're not, or if you're in there. So this is just common sense. Why would the federal government be committing so many of our tax dollars to bailing out and refurbishing and rebuilding homes and businesses in 100-year floodplains, other than somebody a long time ago said, no, we need to build here. Because I don't know if you know this, but the majority of New Orleans is below sea level. I mean, we're talking about a lot of this area around Houston. It's areas that shouldn't have been built up to this degree. Now, this is a 500-year flood that they're experiencing in Houston. So it's not the entirety of the area, but you see what I'm saying. We would be smarter about it if we knew if this house goes down, you put $300,000 into building a house, you buy the land for, $90,000, now you're into it for almost $400,000, plus the time, your personal time that's spent in overseeing the construction of a home. And you're not going to put $400,000 plus 8 months of your time into overseeing the construction of a new house if you know that if the whole thing is obliterated by a flood, there's nobody there who's got your back. No one will insure it. You won't build there. And this is the point that he's trying to make here. And it is so smart to bring this up now because someone has already noted on another website. I saw it and I was like, I wonder if this is fake news. It's not. This flood authorization is up for renewal. They need to redo this program. It's about to expire. And I feel like they should let it go. So the bottom line, according to Adam, is that if we continue with stale government-centric thinking, we shouldn't be surprised when the recovery produces underwhelming results. Eliminating crony federal protectionism, by contrast, will lower recovery costs while laying the foundation for new prosperity. All it requires is congressional political will. Now, he might as well have said all it requires is clouds made of marshmallows and horses that have unicorn horns, and then it can happen. Because congressional political will is something that seems it can only be brought about with lobbying dollars. And most of us, you in the listening audience and me sitting right here in this office, we don't have that going on. We don't have any lobbying dollars. We don't have anyone that we can call who's in Congress. If we have their ear. It's just ridiculous. But he's right about this. And so I'll also put this in my Twitter feed for you to read and share. These are such great ideas, and we should explore them even more, I think, especially the racist underpinnings of the Davis-Bacon Act of 1931. It's also a part of the minimum wage bits and pieces that we're seeing, people pressing for higher minimum wage. These are things that harm primarily the Black community. Leftists don't ever like to talk about that because they don't expect to have to do anything to get the votes of Black people. They expect to be able to get those votes no matter what, even if they're implementing policies that hurt Black people. And so I'm coming back to that because this is a continuing problem with the Democrats. And believe me, I wish that wasn't their mode of operation because it sickens me to have to always bring it back to that. But that is what it's about for me. If the Democrats were helping the Black community, I would sit back with my lips zipped. But they've yet to achieve any quantifiable results that help the Black community. If people in the Black community are making it, it's because they're applying merit-based concepts to their behaviors and they're working their way out. And for people who aren't, people who are buying into the Marxist philosophy that you can't make it here in America, you just basically laid out your own trajectory. If you sit around and say things like, I can't do this, I can't do that, you verbalize that, it's already coming out of your mind, out of the heart, the mouth speaks. If that's what you have in your heart, that you don't believe in yourself, that you don't believe in God, you don't think God can answer your prayers, you don't think the things he has in the Bible are true, you don't believe he can do anything for you, you don't believe you can do anything for yourself, then that's why you're sitting there in that hovel living like that. That is why. So this isn't about me looking down on people or not believing in people. It is about the Democrats basically pouring that negativity into people and then people receiving it, internalizing it, accepting it, and then letting it grow like a seed and speaking it right back out of their own mouths. That's why they feel like they need the government to make people pay other people $15 an hour, whether they're worth it or not, as opposed to them empowering people to say, you know what? I would never accept $15 an hour. I'm worth way more than that. I have more value than that. So I'm going to go out there and I'm going to make sure that people know my value by working hard and putting my skills out there so I can be paid much more than that. That should be the attitude that the Democrats are pouring out, no matter what the rest of their platform is. All right. We'll be back with more right after this. Stacey on the Right.
The Awakening on Urban Family Talk.
You know, a bunch of people who thought Obama was the Messiah. There are a lot of people who are kind of treating Trump like that.
Bishop E.W. Jackson.
Folks, I'm not looking for a Messiah. I've already got one. His name is Jesus, the Son of the living God. We put our ultimate trust in him. All other human beings are fallible.
The Awakening, weekday mornings at 9 Central on Urban Family Talk. Just as David's mighty man Benaiah chased down a lion into a pit on a snowy day, Lion Chasers champions uncommon men and women of faith who are unafraid to stand up and speak truth to power in these dark and evil days. Never before has there been such a need for people of faith to draw a line in the sand with the sword of truth. Lion Chasers, the intersection of faith and public policy with Lonnie Poindexter. Weekday mornings at 10 Central on Urban Family Talk.
Hello, this is Bishop Harry Jackson of Hope Christian Church in Beltsville, Maryland.
Jesus said, you would do greater works than he did. When the Lord was about to take Elijah up to heaven in a whirlwind, Elijah and Elisha were on their way to Gilgal. Elijah said to Elisha, stay here. The Lord has sent me to Bethel. But Elisha said, as the Lord lives and as you live, I will not leave you. If we'll go emotionally and spiritually where they went physically, we'll come into the truths and the transforming and transferring of the mantle that happened with Elisha will happen with us in our generation. Elijah was the old school generation. He was the 84, 85-year-old, nearly 90-year-old who has been the Billy Graham of the generation. And he says, I've walked with you, I've talked with you, I've told you, I've helped you, I've instructed you. Now, son, it's your turn. This is about passing the baton generationally. Some of us who are my age have to recognize that the 80-some-year-olds are all rolling off the scene, and whether we think ourselves to be young, small in our own sight, we're going to have to step up and be the only spiritual fathers that this generation can know.
Join us this Sunday morning at 6251 Annandale Road in Beltsville or on the web at thehopeconnection.org.
This is Stacy on the Right on Urban Family Talk.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Stacy on the Right, at Stacy on the Right on Twitter and Instagram. Hit the follow button over there for me, guys. I would really love to have you receive the updates that I make on a regular basis. Usually it's the links and stories, some of which we talk about here on the show. It's keeping you up to date. It also is a great place to kind of keep the information flow. Definitely breaking news happens on Twitter first. And you can also find out about things that are going on, which are sometimes of interest and sometimes just pure, silliness. One of the things trending on Twitter right now is the hashtag beauty in 5 words. I'm almost afraid to click on it because invariably there'll be stuff on there that's vulgar, but Twitter is an adventure. And so thank you so much for tuning in today. It's been great to be with you so far in the program. It's my pleasure to welcome staff writer for the Daily Wire, one of the best websites out there. In fact, if you go to my Stacy on the Right Show page, there's a video, not safe for work, of a guy trying to carjack a car from this lady who then drives away. And this crazy man holds on to the passenger handle, the handle of the door, and gets drug along the street to hilarious consequences. So you can find that on the Stacy on the Right Show page. It's my pleasure to welcome Amanda Prestigiacomo to the program. Thanks for coming on today, Amanda.
Thanks for having me, Stacey.
Sure. So let's talk about these a hilarious backfiring incident for Planned Parenthood online. They're always so tone deaf. It's not surprising to me that this is happening to them.
Oh, yeah, all the time. It's like once a week. They'll put something out on some sort of social media platform, and it will completely backfire. This happened yesterday. I don't know whoever's manning their Twitter account. They put out a tweet that said, fill in the blank. The person I'm going out with can never blank. Tell us your dating deal breakers. Like, this is just like, bait for conservatives. This is red meat. As soon as they put this out, there were just endless replies, endless people commenting saying, my deal breaker is that you can't kill babies. My deal breaker is that you can't sell the parts of babies that you murdered. It was just endless. They got just an avalanche of truthful but biting remarks. As usual, Planned Parenthood is just, they have a lot of scissors and forceps in there, but they have no mirrors, apparently. They just walk into these all the time.
So at this point, I'm wondering if you've seen this. So forgive me if you haven't seen this yet, but I've been dying to ask someone who's firmly on the right side of the political spectrum with the social issues, which you are. So I don't know if you saw this, but they had the professor who said that the reason why the hurricane slammed into Texas is because Texas is getting instant karma for voting for Donald Trump. Now, he was, very swiftly given the boot from the University of Tampa. But other people are saying, less famously, are saying that this is kind of like a clean out. Like, one of the biggest Planned Parenthoods in the country is actually located in Texas at the nexus of 3 counties, which are primarily Black and Hispanic. And it's like a Planned Parenthood mega clinic. It's like the size of a major hospital. And they do more abortions there. Like, this is one of the areas where there are more abortions than babies born alive in certain little boroughs that are adjacent to this clinic. And people are saying that this is where they did a bunch of the baby parts purchasing and selling and all of that out of this clinic, and that they feel like this is, a reaction to that, like a kind of biblical clean out, if you will, because it's going on there for so long. What do you think about that? I
don't tend to use that kind of language when it comes to this. Houston is, ironically, Houston is more liberal, and like you said, there's a lot of Planned Parenthood clinics there and a lot of, sinful, disgusting, murderous things happening there. I don't think, I'm not going to say that this is God's wrath on that, but but the thing is, if someone were to say that, what's the difference between that statement and somebody on the left saying that all, Texas is getting hit because they voted for President Trump, the electoral votes that went to President Trump? If one's ridiculous, the other is ridiculous too. And it's funny that one side will be painted as bigoted and the other as progressive. I think both are misguided statements.
I tend to agree, although obviously the Bible does have provision for judgment. I think it's not a good way to get people to listen to what we have to say, to take on that kind of attack, especially when it is so insulting to think that someone would actually think that somehow a hurricane has a mind of its own and decides, I'm going to build up to this strength and come in and wipe out, the city of Houston and surrounding area because that is an area that voted for Donald Trump, which oddly enough, as you pointed out, Houston's pretty liberal. The city of Houston probably didn't go for President Trump. The state did, but the actual city, we probably would look and see that the votes there didn't go for him. I agree with you. I think no matter what your personal feelings might be, the best way to get people to listen to what we have to say is not to kind of basically push them off in a corner and say, you deserved this disaster, but to help and to try to get people to understand that we're all Americans and we're all a part of the same. We're all here together. We don't all agree on everything, but we are all a part of the same thing.
And I think there were a lot of people trying to get a political narrative out of this. There were a lot of people on the left who were saying it was climate change. So there are a lot of people trying to use this for political reasons, which is really nasty. But like you said, in Texas and in Houston, we've seen so much humanity and so much Americanism and people not caring about, gender or race or religion and just helping their neighbor. So that should be the focus. And, this is, a lot of this was not government involvement. A lot of this were people picking up fishing boats and going out and saving their neighbor. So that's a very conservative message in its own right. So we should focus on that.
I so agree with you. Amanda, some of the best stories that I've seen so far have been of people helping each other in the most interesting ways. I mean, some of the stories that have really enraged the leftists, like there's this very tall, very masculine, almost SEAL Team 6 looking guy, and he's got his fatigues bottoms on, and he's carrying this tiny little woman, and her baby is tucked in, she's carrying the baby, and he's rescuing her from the flood. It is such an iconic image, and it actually enraged leftists to think that this manly man went in and saw her standing there, and probably, the water is up past his knees, so she's much shorter than him, probably up to her chest, impossible for her to carry her baby and get out. And he comes in and swoops them both up to make sure they can get away safely, and they're insulted by that. So there are some great stories, some real human stories that I'm glad to see them.
Yeah, and actually Ben Shapiro, my boss, who's editor-in-chief of the Daily Wire, wrote a fantastic piece about just what you were talking about this so-called toxic masculinity coming to the surface in Houston. Yeah, exactly. And like all of, and these men who are coming to save women. Yes, there are women doing tremendous work as well. But even just the biological differences where men can pick up some of these people and carry them off. We see this like traditional sense of protection and, looking after women and the women looking after their children. And that is very irritating to a lot on the left. And I actually put a tweet out, and I captioned a bunch of pictures of men saving women and children, and I said, something should be done about all this toxic masculinity, and that just set off the left because they were just enraged that there are actual differences and that men are stepping up and doing what they're inherently meant to do and protect women.
Yeah. I loved what he wrote, and also there were a couple of other people who weighed in on that. The actual idea that watching a man rescue a woman in 2017, instead of going, yes, she got away, her and her baby got away, everyone's like, he's being too masculine in that picture. It's like you almost think to yourself, are you for real? Yeah. Like, what could be wrong with this? He saved her. Isn't that all that really matters, is that he saved her? Who cares if he actually looked pretty awesome, like he was coming off of a movie set with those fatigues, and he looks like he's just fresh off of a military deployment, and then he was like, oh, a flood, let me go save a few people, and he goes and saves them. I just couldn't see anything wrong with it. And it wasn't just that. There are other images, Amanda, which I haven't seen as much backlash against them. I've seen more cheering, but there's one of someone takes a picture from the second floor overlook, those two-story entry foyers, and it's an older lady, and she's on the back of one of those ski-doos, and the guy on the front, he's a black guy, and they're both looking up at the picture, like waving, and she looks ecstatic. She's getting rescued. I did see that. Yeah, these are great moments.
Yeah, and again, it's there is a lot of, particularly on the left, they'll try to drive a wedge between races, and this kind of, especially coming off of Charlottesville. This is, a tale of two stories here, two cities here, because in Houston we see black, white, brown, purple, all helping each other. It doesn't matter race. There is you don't see any racial animus there at all. But these 200 neo-Nazis who are despicable, I'm not going to condone that at all, ever, but it's such a small fraction of this country, and we should focus on the general, just willingness of people to love one another no matter their skin tone, and it just kind of drives a wedge in that narrative that America is this inherently racist place.
It is not. Now, there's always going to be some, awful buffoon out there, and there may even be a group of awful buffoons. That was a pretty sizable little group they had there in Charlottesville. But these are, even the Southern Poverty Law Center, which I absolutely give zero credibility, but even they tend to inflate the numbers, are saying there are about 6,000 of these people across the country. Out of 312, 325, depends on who you're asking, million Americans. That's not even a standard deviation.
Yeah, in Charlottesville, this was a national protest that took months in advance to plan. There were 200, 300 tops people there. So again, this is, like you said, this is not some massive thing, but the media glom onto it because they can attach it to Trump, and all Republicans are racist. This is on the conservative side, so they can't get enough cameras there. But like you said, this is a very small portion, and that doesn't mean we can't condemn them. Of course, we should. That's disgusting. It's vile. But again, they're just trying to build this overall narrative of this, this really racist country that's just not there.
Well, you know what, Amanda? My new basis for judging whether or not a white supremacist is even worth their salt is whether or not they took the time to go out into the woods or their backyard and get a sizable stick or branch, wrap a T-shirt around it and douse it in kerosene and make an actual torch, as opposed to purchasing a mosquito repellent torch from Lowe's. That's how I judge it. So they didn't meet mustard.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
I couldn't believe how it was. I wasn't like I was trying to mock them. I was watching the coverage thinking, boy, this is going to be bad. White supremacists getting together. And I was looking at the pictures and I was like, wait, are those Lowe's tiki torches? Because those look like Lowe's tiki torches. And
they look so sad. And yeah, it was right. They just stopped at Lowe's, like, put a little more effort into this. I don't even buy that you're a real neo-Nazi.
I mean, they're probably pretty horrifying people, but I just, these are actual real people who have jobs. And there was some backlash afterwards, which I found interesting, that they showed themselves in public at these marches, some of them yelling, so the pictures of them are with their mouths wide open, some of them with very distinctive tattoos, so their arm is raised up in a salute, and you see the tattoo on their arm, and then people match those up to Facebook. That's what's so amazing about the information age. People are like, I know that guy. They find him on Facebook, and then one guy got fired. Another one, his family basically openly disavowed him on online social media and said he's no longer in our family.
Yeah.
I mean, you have to be pretty bold to want to go to Lowe's and get the tiki torches and march in a national type of a thing. But then on the other hand, it's almost a banner like, look at me, I'm an idiot. That's what I felt like in the end it turned out to be.
Yeah, and it was, and like you said, they were they were pretty much condemned by everybody, quickly, swiftly, even their own family members. So that's, again, another good sign that this is a very small population. So, yeah, that this is not some massive thing that's, an existential threat to Western civilization. I mean, I think the left and, Antifa, for instance, which is on every college campus, everywhere, beating up people and silencing conservative thought, that's a pretty big threat. We can go back and forth and say which one's more evil. Racism is obviously pretty much the worst evil we can view nowadays, But again, it's just they're totally sweeping the left sins under the rug to focus on this tiny, tiny minority.
Well, yeah, and it's silly. So, okay, last question, because we have just a couple minutes left here. What's your completely distilled thought on Nancy Pelosi coming out with a condemnation of Antifa today? I was pretty shocked to see it.
Yeah, I'm just going to give her credit, honestly, because these Democrats are getting a pass from the media, which is despicable, and they're not even being asked about it. They're just giving Antifa platforms to talk. Good on Nancy Pelosi. I'm not going to offer too much criticism. I'm sure there was political pressures or what have you, but I would like to see every Democrat come out. I know every Republican has condemned them. It'd be really nice if more came out, and I'm not going to slam Nancy. I'm not going to find anything wrong with this. Good for her. Let's see more of this condemn, this violent suppression of speech.
I couldn't agree more. It is always such a pleasure when you come on the show. Thanks for taking the time out today, Amanda. And we love the work that you guys do over at the Daily Wire. And Ben Shapiro, what? Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you so much, Stacey.
All right, talk to you soon. And that's Amanda Prestigiacomo, staff writer for the Daily Wire. And I actually will put this article in my Twitter feed as well if you're interested in reading it. She's right. It is a regular occurrence that Planned Parenthood sticks their foot in it. I think they should stop tweeting, honestly. They're not in a business that is a growth market. They're not into something that anyone should be proud of yet. It just goes to show you some of the lowering of our expectations that these people can operate out in the world free, proudly advancing their aim of making sure that every woman has 3 abortions in her childbearing years, every American woman. This is disgusting, but I'm glad that we have Amanda and the Daily Wire to cover these things for us. And also, as an aside, there's a lot of conversation going on about Tomi Lahren taking this job over at Fox News. I think it's going to be interesting to see what turns up there. So we'll be back with more right after this. Stacey on the right.
Equipped with Chris Brooks.
This program is an apologetic endeavor. What I want to do is really train you in the art and science of defending and commending your Christian faith to people who maybe they've been hurt by the church, maybe they don't believe like you believe, and you're saying to yourself, how do I have an effective conversation with them? Well, we're looking for an evangelistic edge, if you will, that will allow us to more effectively, more contextualize the gospel so that we can reach men and women for Christ. Quite often, the on-ramp, if you will, is looking at culture and taking advantage of the conversations that folks are already having and saying, how can I leverage this to get people to talk about Jesus? This show becomes kind of massively significant to you if your desire is to reach people for Christ.
Get equipped with Chris Brooks.
Join me Monday through Friday at noon Central Time on Urban Family Talk.
As we pray for the people of Houston and Southeast Texas, 8 Days of Hope is mounting a relief operation following Hurricane Harvey, and you can help. Next Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, Urban Family Talk will give you the opportunity to lend your financial support. AFA has partnered with the trustworthy ministry of 8 Days of Hope for years, and we encourage you to give $25 or more. Be listening next Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday as we support 8 Days of Hope in Hurricane Harvey disaster relief.
Family is an institution set forth by God, one man and one woman for life, with the outflow being children produced by that union. It's obvious to all that there is an attack on the family in our country, and especially on fathers. Whether it's the cycle of sin that persists in our families or the pressure from our government to exclude men from being intimately involved, the strategic battle is on for the souls of men. Join us in the battle to strengthen fatherhood. UrbanFamilyTalk.com.
You never know what the future might be. That's the beauty of possibility. Every human life, so irreplaceable. I can't imagine life without you. It's just unthinkable. There's no one like you. No one like you. You're 1 in 7 billion. There's no one like you. No one like you. You're 1 in 7 billion.
We are all created by God with undeniable purpose. Learn more about beautiful possibility at www.radiance.life. Follow us on Twitter at Life Has Purpose.
Welcome back to Stacy on the Right on Urban Family Talk.
Chuck, the governor said, you know what, we're past that. We got to move on.
You know, far be it for me to second guess that decision. I've heard very smart things said on both sides, and it sounds to me like it was a reasonable call given what they knew at the time. You could have had a situation with hundreds of thousands of people trying to get out on their cars on these highways, which are designed under the planning they had there in Houston, are designed to be the routes, the channels through which the water escapes the city in the case of a flood. So I don't think we need to spend too much time second guessing that. I think that the real verdict on this will be known over time, because what really has to happen here now, there's all kinds of talk about how we're going to coordinate, we're going to supply everything we need, but history has shown that's where these efforts become controversial, that's where they can fall down, is in terms of the recovery, where people are starting to claim, I didn't get my loan on time, I didn't get my reconstruction money on time, the bureaucracy held up this, that, and the other thing, and furthermore, we have the relocation issue. You have 30,000 people at last check living in shelters. How long will it be before they can go back to their homes? I'm not saying all that's going to go wrong. I'm praying it's going to go right. I'm just defining those as the issues over the medium term where the controversy will start to rise.
Speaking of money.
Wow. So there's a lot to consider here. Welcome back to the show, everybody. StacyOnTheRight.com, 866-963-2037. I want to give you a heads up. I'm not going to give you all the talking points or all the details, but I want to just let you know, for people who are reaching out and saying, where can we donate to? I've had a number of people say, is it the Red Cross? Is it the Urban, United Way? United Way, Red Cross, what have you. I'm not doing the Red Cross. I'm not doing the United Way. I don't want any associations with Planned Parenthood or any of the money that I'm donating to go to anything that has to do with them. And so I have to find places that are clean, that will give the money directly, the majority of it, over 90%, to the actual people who are hurting or for use for those people. So here at Urban Family Talk and American Family Radio, we are actually partnering up with someone. And next week, September 6th, 7th, and 8th, we're going to have an opportunity for you to donate to this organization with the assurance that your money will not be given to Planned Parenthood, and you will be able to put your money and your donations clearly and honestly and confidently with this organization and know that it will get to the people. We're going to have someone on to talk about this. And so I just want to give you the preview that it is going to be happening. 8 Days of Hope is the name of the organization, and we'll be having the ability for you to donate to them next week, 6th, 7th, and 8th, which is appropriate as the water recedes. Then organizations will be able to move in to help the people. So it's not as if waiting until next week will be detrimental in any way. And if I find any other organizations before then, obviously I'll share that on my Facebook page. But right now, I'm really happy to see this email come in through, from on high to let us know that we're going to be doing this. So that's going to be our push. That's going to be where we're going to be putting our money. And also with any pastors and organizations, as we did the last time there was a disaster, we had a pastor on. He talked about what he was doing at his church, and you guys responded in an amazing way, giving money to them and helping them with donations. And that was then pushed out to the people who needed it. So we're going to be doing something similar this time. Right now, it's my pleasure to welcome Tyler Walea, Associate Pastor for the First Church in South Houston, Texas. Thanks so much for coming on, Tyler.
My honor to be with you today.
Yeah, I'm really glad to get to speak with you about everything that's going on down there, especially with your church leading rescue operations in the Pearland, Friendswood, and Southwest Houston area. Can you tell us what you guys are doing?
Yeah, it's obviously, if you've seen the news, it's been crazy, and we've just had some incredible people that have stepped up. We've got guys going out in kayaks, flat-bottom boats, jet skis, and just getting people out of their house, getting them to shelters, and just trying to save as many people as we can, as fast as we can. It's just been wild, obviously, as you can see.
It has been. It's been. Well, on the one hand, it's been hard to look at, but on the other hand, we have to look at this and we have to understand that this is the world that we live in, that disasters can happen anywhere. And when we take in the fury of water entering into an entire city and coming up over the tops of the barriers, so the highway barriers, I saw this on Fox News. Laura Ingraham was saying that next to the highway, the barrier that keeps the noise of the highway away from subdivisions. Those barriers are often 18, 20 feet tall. They're made of concrete. The water actually poured over those barriers into subdivisions that kind of back up to the highway. That is devastation on a level that most of us can't even really think through without seeing these images.
Yeah, it's the area of Houston that we're in, the South Houston area, we got around 50 inches, 49.4 inches of rain, which is our yearly total average rainfall, and we got that in 3 days. So you think of the devastation of that, and you can just imagine every neighborhood. It's like homes just sitting in the middle of a river. It's devastating.
So what are you guys doing? I have right here firstchurch.com. Tell us about that, Pastor.
Yeah, that is just our church website, and we've basically transitioned our whole website into just a way to take in donations from people. We've had tons of people seeing what's going on online, seeing what our church is trying to do, and offering to help. And so we've just made it a simple way to do that. The deal is, at this point, we're just trying to get as many supplies as we can to get food to people, and then in the weeks ahead to help with rebuilding processes. What we're seeing now, one of the things we've been doing is working with first responders. We're finding these people at fire stations. They've been on for 30 hours. They've not had anything to eat or drink. And so one of our teams is just cooking probably 12 hours a day, just feeding first responders to keep them fueled up and ready to go. So what you were saying earlier when I tuned in about, there's so many organizations asking for money. We encourage people to give wherever but there's so many of these organizations that so much of it goes to administrative fees and all of this. We're just trying to turn money into supplies that we can help people.
And this is one of the reasons why I was really excited to get to talk with you, because I feel like God provides. He gives us opportunities to give if our heart's in the right place, and to know that that money is going to go someplace good. And so you're already on the ground working. You're already feeding the first responders, which is integral to them being able to stay on the job and work these extra long shifts and return with very little downtime to keep working. And you have something else, Reach Out America Relief Organizations. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, Reach Out America, it's an organization that we've partnered with over the years for several different national disasters. They move in and they coordinate with other organizations. There's a large warehouse, a clearinghouse they use in North Houston that all sorts of donated supplies go to, and then they put them on trucks from there and just distribute them all over. So our church is one of their distribution points. And so as soon as the roads are clear, they've got 4 18-wheelers headed our way. And our hope is that by Saturday, we'll just be able to open the doors and say, hey, if you need anything, just come in and get it, come pick it up. So it's a great organization, and also Feed the Children works with them. They're coming in. They'll be setting up a food pantry style thing, because right now resources are the problem around here. There's a few stores that are open and the shelves are just empty. We're not at the point of a huge food crisis and whatever yet, but it's getting close, because everybody is just trying to get what they need from the few places that are open. So it's been crazy. We've got people today going out with flat bottom boats full of food and diapers and baby formula and all these things into communities that can't get out of their neighborhoods yet, just towing it around with megaphones saying, does anybody need supplies or food or whatever, and just trying to give away as much as we can.
Yeah. So I'm really glad to hear that you've already got this laid out. So at this point, people are probably wondering, as I am, how can we help? Is there a place we can go to give to? Because one of the things I'm concerned with is, obviously, I don't want any of my dollars going to Planned Parenthood, but I also don't want them going to places that in the past have had any scandals or any problems with getting the money straight through to where it is supposed to go. I want to know that it's going to be immediately converted into, resources that can be used by either the first responders or the people who've been harmed themselves in their area, not in some bureaucratic, place in New York City or something like that. So how can we help with what you guys are doing? Not just you, but firstchurch.com, which is your site, and then Reach Out America.
What I would just encourage anyone that wants to help is just go to the site and donate, and I promise you, every single dollar that comes in, we've already spent way beyond what we anticipate coming in. We're constantly sending people out on runs. Just go buy it. We're out of diapers. Go buy as many diapers as you can get. We're out of baby formula, because it's just a huge crisis. And so we've just made the decision, made the pledge to ourselves as a church that we're not going to profit off of this at all. We've got to help people, because this city, without help from the outside, there is no plan. There's no backup plan. There's no rebuild. There's not enough government assistance to get people back on their feet. And what people need right now, more than FEMA claims and insurance money, they just need to survive for the next few weeks while all of this unfolds. And so we're trying to do everything we can do right now. We're not waiting on the Red Cross to get here. We're not waiting on all these people that say they're going to show up. We are just trying to do what we can do to turn as much money into things that will save people right now. And so what website is best? Is it firstchurch.com to send the donations? Yes, firstchurch.com. And what we do outside of just the things that we have to go and purchase, we give to Reach Out America and Feed the Children to help fund. Largely what we fund with them is getting things transported here, because they get so many donations, but it's costing thousands of dollars for freight companies and whatever to come from all over the U.S. And so their Reach Out America is one of their big programs, is that they just manage logistics and getting things to places. So, I mean, there's things coming in on boats, there's things coming in on on shipping containers, and so we're just trying to facilitate getting it to as many shelters, as many relief facilities, as many distribution points as possible.
I am really hopeful that we can have just whatever kind of help that we can offer to you to make sure that this gets done, and so people can have, as you're discussing, because this is early days, but it is kind of hard to fathom. I have to admit, Pastor Walea, it's hard to fathom how it's working for people who are on the ground there who've already been rescued but don't have anywhere else to go, so they're at the shelter. The shelters have to feed them and help, basically replenish what they couldn't take with them. I saw some people being evacuated with suitcases. I saw other people, they just had their clothes on their back and their kids. These people need things for the kids to, pajamas for people to sleep in. They need pillows. They're going to have cots at the shelter, but they're going to need some creature comforts. And all of that's got to come from somewhere. And the fact that, as you said, the store shelves are empty. I've seen those images. It's been really, it's just hard to process, because when you have everything at your fingertips, you don't think about all the stuff you're constantly using on a daily basis.
Right.
So these people really need a lot. And I think there's just millions of Americans who want to help. But we need to be very wise about how we focus our energy on helping. So I really appreciate, God bless you for what you're doing down there, being that point of intervention and making sure that these things are actually happening. It's integral to the people there and for us to help us connect with those people. We really appreciate the work that you're doing.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate you taking the time to reach out to us. It's always encouraging to get some encouragement from the outside. You kind of feel like you're fighting a losing battle sometimes, but it has been amazing to watch the community come together, to watch everyone just be willing and ready to jump in and help everyone they can. We've got people that have lost everything, and they're out in boats rescuing other people, and it's been horrifying, but it's also been amazing to watch how people have come together throughout all of this.
Glory to God. I'm so glad that that's happening, and it does give us a respite from all the politics and the derision that we've been experiencing. Thank you, sir. And what I would encourage you, because you and Demetrius were working together to set up this interview, if you have any updates or anything that you need to come on and talk about, please text Demetrius so we can get you back on. I usually always have 10 minutes that I can, on the fly, get you on to talk about something, a need, a call, whatever. So we can keep up with you and help. Thank you so much, Pastor.
I appreciate that so much. We'll take you up on that. Thank you.
All right, perfect. Talk to you soon. God bless. All right, that's the whole show, everybody. Wow, that just flew by. I want to leave you with some encouraging scripture. I don't want to let the show go by without having some encouragement. And so when talking about a disaster, there are a number of scriptures where God is speaking to us to let us know that he doesn't leave our side. And so one of them is in Job. Remember the disaster that Job went through. Yet does not one in a heap of ruins stretch out his hand, or in his disaster therefore cry out for help? And that's Job 30:24. Psalm 57:1 says, "Be gracious to me, O God, be gracious to me, for my soul takes refuge in you, and in the shadow of your wings I will take refuge until destruction passes by." And Ecclesiastes 9:12, "Moreover, man does not know his time. Like fish caught in a treacherous net and birds trapped in a snare, so the sons of men are ensnared at an evil time when it suddenly falls on them." But we have the answer, and that is to cry out to God, draw near to him, and allow him to be with us in this time of need. Thank you so much for being with us today. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. God bless.